So the Army wants to make vaccination mandatory. So much for the Democrats' old slogan of my body, my choice. In any case, Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky is challenging this with a new bill, and he's here to discuss it. Congressman, we appreciate you joining us, and I know that you were hustling over because, you were in D.C. doing your job, voting,
right.
and doing the will of the people, which seems like only one side really does that anymore. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dana. Thanks for having me on and covering this topic. This bill wasn't my idea. Somebody called me up who's a constituent who serves in our military. These folks signed up to give their life if need be, to protect our rights, our constitutional rights. And I just think it's wrong that we force them to take a vaccine, experimental vaccine right now. But the concern is that when this becomes FDA approved, which they seem to be rushing that a little bit, and they're anticipating that might happen in September, that immediately the Army and the other branches of the military will probably move to try and make this mandatory.
And that would all go into effect September 1st. And I do get, and I'm sure you feel the same way, well, I know you do, because I follow you on social media and I can see what you say about it. But I never understand why people get mad. Like, for instance, the military members that are speaking up about this. What is the big hurdle in the administration just being as absolutely transparent as possible and giving everyone, the most up-to-date data as possible? Because I said earlier, during a time like this, the two things that are most important are transparency and data. And it's really difficult to justify other people's anger at vaccine hesitant, particularly military members, when we don't have enough information to be able to make that kind of conclusion about risk assessment for our health.
That's right. There are two pieces of really important data that aren't getting out there. I feel like the CDC, well, I know the CDC is covering up the fact that if you've already had COVID, that getting the vaccine hasn't proven in real world results. Now, in a test tube, they have reason to believe it might help. But in the real world results, there's no proven benefit of the vaccine if you've already recovered from COVID. Now, if you couple that with the other fact that's not very well discussed, the military themselves have noticed that they have this adverse reaction of myocarditis, which is a swelling of the heart, that is greater than the general population in the time following taking the vaccine among members of the military, not just among the general population. And it's specifically an issue for folks who are in that age where you may have just enlisted, between the ages of 18 and 27. It seems to be a very prevalent, well, not a very prevalent side effect. Don't let me say that. It's still a rare reaction.
It's enough to ask questions.
Right. And I just think, it should be a choice. Now, the rebuttal is, people say, oh, you're in the military, you get 7 or 10 vaccines anyway. It's the first thing that happens in boot camp, and we all know it, and you signed up for it. Well, they signed up for those vaccines, that's true, but they didn't sign up for a new vaccine. When they enlisted, They didn't know this was going to be a vaccine. And there's a history here too, Dana. The anthrax vaccine, when that first came out, if you were going to be deployed to the Middle East, they made it mandatory for members of the military. And the GAO did a report, and there were 3 congressional hearings on this, covering the fact that we lost members of the military. They either took an early retirement in the case of officers who were able to or didn't re-up. Obviously, if you're enlisted, you've made a commitment to stay in the military, but there were even some people who were willing to take dishonorable discharge or a general discharge in some cases. And, you can't just quit the military. I know that, and people on the internet are trying to say you're stupid because if you think you can quit the military. But there are officers who can make decisions about whether to stay or go, and there are people who are going to try and seek religious exemptions. I just think it's a really bad force-shaping tool to try and sort our military members this way.
Yeah, and to your point, talking with Congressman Thomas Massie, to your point, Congressman, on, well, they sign up for these vaccines. Well, they sign up for vaccines that have been out for quite a long time. They've gone through the FDA approval process. It's not just being used for emergency authorization. And they've also seen any kind of, side effects or potential side effects. They've been around long enough where they've got a significant group of individuals that they can make conclusions, about how it's going to affect other people's health, and very, and they're transparent about it. Whereas with this, and I understand we've had a lot of grace for the government dealing with a brand new virus like this, but it doesn't seem that that grace has been extended to people who still would like a little bit more information, just so that they can feel that they have done everything they could to inform themselves about everything possible related to this vaccine. There's a shaming effort going on here.
Oh, there is. They're trying to shame you. And, sometimes it takes years to know what the exact effects of a vaccine were. There's speculation. Of course, it's not been proven. And we've not really proven anything about what causes Gulf War syndrome. The folks who've come back from the Gulf War and have long-term health effects. But it seems to be a prevalent problem, more so than, you would expect to see in the military otherwise. But the thing that's unique about them is they took the anthrax vaccine, and which wasn't necessarily required in other areas. So there's speculation that may have had something to do with it. I think if you cared, even, if you weren't looking out for members of the military and all you cared about was defending this country, I would think you would want to, diversify your risk. And does it make sense to have every pilot, everybody that's qualified to fly an airplane in the Navy or the Air Force or the Army or the Marines, does it make sense to have them all take this vaccine? Wouldn't you want to have a few who didn't? I mean, even if you made a policy that says everybody's going to get the vaccine, I think it'd be a good idea to stick some placebos in there just in case, And that's the other thing. These are the type of members who we might lose. They may decide, if they're able to resign their commission or to take early retirement or to leave without their retirement if they're officers. These are trained pilots. Some of these people, I just received a note from somebody who's Special Forces Green Beret, who says, they will take the consequences, whatever it is. Maybe it's military court. Maybe they are convicted there if they can't get a religious exemption. We don't want to lose our most qualified, our healthiest, our best trained members of the military. It'd be tragic to lose even, one due to this policy. So I just think let's honor them. Just because they take other vaccines that have been proven and tested over time doesn't mean that they should be forced to take this one. Here's the message that I would send strongly to everybody, Dana. Don't listen to a politician and don't listen to a bureaucrat. Go see your doctor. If there's somebody who's going to be responsible for taking care of you 5 or 10 years from now because it's a family doctor, listen to that person. They've got a medical education. Most of these folks up here are scientists, but they're political scientists. They've got nothing but a political science degree, if anything. And I wouldn't listen to a politician. Whether they tell you to take it or not, go listen to your doctor.